Hi, good morning, everybody. Good afternoon, rather. We have a number of bills on the agenda. 13 bills and 1 resolution for consideration. It's the 4th hearing on the income tax reduction and rescheduling of brackets. It's the 3rd hearing on the 13th month pay exemption. It's also the 3rd hearing on the marginal income earners bills. It's the 1st for the bills on the BIR power to handle tax recovery and forfeiture cases, and the 1st on tax administration-taxpayer rights bill. So, first I'll ask the ComSec to acknowledge our guests present. Thank you for coming.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair. Good afternoon, Attorney Dasil. From the Department of Finance, we have Yusek Jeremias and Paul Jr., together with Ms. Juvie Danofrata, Chief Research and Information Office. From the Bureau of Internal Revenue, we have Attorney Nina Asuncion, together with Attorney Tim Renomeron, Assistant Chief BIR Prosecution Division, and Attorney Felix Paul Velasco, Chief of the BIR Litigation Division. They are also with Ms. Marivic Galvan, Chief of the Taxpayer Service Program Management Division. From the National Tax Research Center, we have Executive Director Trinidad Rodriguez. We also have from the Department of Labor and Employment, Ms. Patricia Hornilia, OIC, and Executive Director, National Wages and Productivity Commission. From the TMAP, or Tax Management Association of the Philippines, we have Rina Manuel and Attorney Malu Lim. From the Department of Budget and Management, I'm sorry, sir, she has not arrived yet. From the Department of Justice, we have State Counsel Rosalie Cumla and Senior Assistant State Prosecutor Attorney Edna A. Valenzuela. From the Alliance of Workers in the Informal Economy Sector, we have Ms. Susanita G. Teshorna. And from the UP School of Economics, we have Dr. Stella A. Kimbo, Mr. Ferdinand Gaite, President of Courage, and Ms. Maria Luna Cacanando, Officer in Charge, President and COO of the Small Business Corporation. And we also have representatives from the informal economy sector, headed by Ms. Susanita Tesornia. We have Mr. Maynardo Palarca, and also representatives from HomeNet, Magkaisa, PKKK or Pambansang Koalisyon ng Kababaihan sa Kanayunan, Balikatan sa Kaunlaran, BSK, and other representatives from the Home-Based Workers Network. Mr. Chair.
Thank you, ComSec. So without further ado, let's go to the bills. I think the most urgent one is the 13th month to increase the exempt ceiling of 13th month pay from 30,000 to 70,000. I think it's been in the news lately na napasa na po sa second reading ito sa Kamara de Representante. The Chair Kimbo was very quick to bring out the committee report. Last week, I think DOF Secretary Cesar Purisimo was quoted in the media saying the 13th month pay measure would result in 40 to 60 billion pesos revenue loss. I think, I'm not sure which, but it's carried by a number of media outfits. No? So I guess we really want to zero in on that because halos lahat naman ng eksperto or resource persons are aminado na kailangan na talagang baguhin to, na hindi naman talaga kailangan ng batas kasi nasa batas na pwedeng gawa ng DOF ng paraan, pero for almost 20 years hindi pa naiaangat kahit tumaas na po yung presyo ng mga bilihin, halos dumoble na po. So, can we ask Yusek Paul to explain to us ano po yung methodology dito at saka yung information. May submissions din sila na we were taking a look at this morning. So Yusek will give you the floor, and the BIR also kasi sumulat nga kami last week dahil marami na ring pressure dito sa committee na to come up with a version of the 13th month pay exemption ceiling. So who wants to go ahead? The BOF, the DOF, or the BRR? Or you'll just be one person speaking for the group. We'll recognize Ms. Juvie Danofrata. Yeah, please go ahead.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair. So, this is also explained to the committee members and also to the staff of STSRO when we had our meeting last Thursday. Yeah. So, what we did, Mr. Chair, the methodology would be the same. So, we have the 2010 distribution of tax filers given to us by the BIR. These are compensation taxpayers. 2010 po.
2010.
Opo. So, based on the 2010 distribution of tax filers by status and by gross income bracket, we distributed it according to the 2011 database that we have, also by gross income and by status. We distributed it based on the 2011 collection from compensation, which is 158 billion. So, from the distribution, Mr. Chair, we do a microsimulation.
Sorry, ma'am, I'll interrupt you from time to time, no, to clarify the figures. Yung 158 billion,
that's
the collection of the BIR from
withholding on wages.
Withholding on wages for 2010 or 2011?
11 po.
2011, okay.
Opo.
And that represents how many taxpayers?
Sure, kasi if you look at the annual report, that would be around 10 million. But those are registered. As explained to us by BIR, the 10,254,400 taxpayers compensation are not necessarily paying. So, nagkaroon lang po sila ng TIN.
Yes.
So, based on our distribution, we come up with around just 5 million taxpayers who would be where the collection
we
would be
don't have
coming
the
from.
figure for number of actual taxpayers for 2011.
Wala po ako.
Kasi yung 158 billion is 2011
Opo,
collection, di ba? Collection yan.
Opo.
Total.
Opo.
So, 158 billion for 2011.
Opo.
So, ang ginamit nyo dito sa figures niya is 10 million number of sample tax filers.
Opo.
Why don't we have the actual figure for dun sa number of taxpayers?
Hindi po namin siya nakuha sa BIR. Actually, sir, what we have is just, kasi ang sabi po ko po kanina, 2010 yung aming ginamit na sample. So, yung sa 2010 sample of taxpayers, actually, 3 million lang po, around 3.8.
Let me interrupt you, no? We'll just recognize Senator Recto who chaired this committee. He's the longest serving chairman of this committee.
Yeah.
So, he knows his stuff. Yeah, go ahead. Senator Senate President Pro Tempore Recto, we are asking for the, we're now asking for the estimates of revenue loss, which based on the remarks of Secretary Purisima last week of 40 to 60 billion.
For the 13-month pay.
For the 13-month pay. They've submitted something. Can you please furnish Senator Recto the submission of the DOF?
We submitted po the methodology and the database
methodology,
itself.
and we're now tackling that, the DOF representative. Go ahead.
Opo. So, yung methodology po ng initial...
Ang tanong ko nga, why don't we have if we have the number of the tax collected, bakit wala tayong actual number of taxpayers?
Actually, sir, yung 2010, ang binigay po nila sa amin is around 3.8 million na nakadistribute according to status and gross income.
So, umpisa muna tayo sa 2010. 3.8 million taxpayers.
Yes, sir.
Ilan yung tax collected doon?
Distribution lang po yun, pero yung pong actual collection for 2010, Mr. Chair,
I want to interject. I suppose it's less than 158
Opo.
billion. No? Anyway, you give it to me.
So yun po. So we apply that, the ratio, kasi po naka-by gross income bracket naman po siya, naka-by status. So we apply the ratio of the number of taxpayers using our microsimulation database, and then we apply that to the 158 billion actual collection from withholding on wages ng 2011. And then, Mr. Chair, knowing na dun sa total number of compensation taxpayers, meron naman po tayo dong nakahalong minimum wage earners. So, for the first three rows or 3 income brackets, gross income brackets, which is not less than 60,000, 60,000 to 100,000, 100,000 to 150,000, we free them from tax. So, wala po kayo makikitang tax due doon. Dahil po sa, dahil po sa assumption natin na meron naman po talaga tayo minimum wage earners wherein hindi naman po natin sila talaga tinatax.
So, ilan yung nabawasan dun sa 10 million?
So, lumalabas po lahat-lahat, nasa 5M na lang po siya.
So, 5M.
Yung pinagkukunan po natin nung
5M
nung
taxpayers.
tax collection, opo.
Is that a good estimate of the number of actual taxpayers? Rough figure. 5 million.
We believe so, Mr. Chair.
Okay, sige, go ahead.
Okay. So, that's distributed according to the gross income po. And
Can you explain again to, baka wala pa si Senator Recto, yung bakit 3.8 million lang ang numero natin that we're working with? That's 3.8 million is the number of people whose wages were withheld in 2010.
Opo, tama po. So, actually, it's 3811722.
So, 3.8, walang
Ito po yung
walang
pumasok.
updated figure doon.
Ito po yung pumasok na sa alpha list po nila sa system nila. Na-generate po nila at binigay po sa amin.
For 2010.
Opo, ang source po nito, I believe is 1604C alpha list po ito.
So 2011 wala tayong later figure as to the actual
Sure, actually right now since nagre-recompute din po kami, nagre-refine din kami, we just received the 2013.
Kasi nagtataka si Senator Recto bakit from 3.8 paano tayo napunta sa 5. So it's just we're just estimating kung bakit, diba?
Opo. Kasi po ang distribute po namin yung pong collection na 158 billion.
Okay. Sige.
Opo. So since we're refining, Mr. Chair, we're getting like the data itself, yung database na mismo from the BIR para makuha namin yung talagang ilan yung pagkukunan natin ng collection. So, also to get the profile of the compensation. So, anyway, going back. So, yung pong sa 2011 database, when we build it up, given the proposal po ng 30 to, various proposal po even sa House, 30 to 40, 30 to 50, 30 to 60, 30 to 70, and unlimited exemption. So, for example, Mr. Chair, it's 30 to 40,000. We apply the 10,000 to those income brackets from the fourth row down. So, yung pong, again, yung pong first 3 brackets, naka-free po lahat yun. Wala po kami in-apply doon ng any increase in exemption. And then, we do the usual computation, then we come up with the...
That's what assumptions you used when computing.
We assume that for those whose income is from the midpoint of 175,000, for example, Mr. Chair, we assume that they are getting a bonus, which is now taxable, at magiging exempt po siya due to the proposal. So if it's 10,000, right now, meron po siyang
this assumes, number one, that you're collecting anything beyond 30,000.
Yes,
Is that
Mr.
correct?
Chair, tama po.
Okay, so the question, how much are we collecting today from the 13-month bonuses beyond 30,000? Is there any data with the BIR or the DOF?
Actually, sir, dun po sa alpha list na 1604C, nakalatag po dun, meron po dun column ng taxable
Could you
bonuses.
repeat that, what you said?
The 1604 alpha list,
1604 alpha list is with regard to?
that's the compensation. That's the report being given by the employer pong withholding agent.
Both government and the private
Yes,
sector.
Mr. Chair.
Okay.
Opo. So, yun po yung sinasubmit po ng mga withholding agents sa BIR, and then they load it to their system. So, dun po sa call, meron po dun different schedules. So, they have 5 schedules there which they have to fill up. And each schedule would have a row on different, for example, even the contributions,
Give us a copy of the 1604.
CF.
So again, the question is, how much are you collecting to begin with? Because remember, what we're discussing here is, meron kayo nakokolekta,
Opo.
and you're saying that if we increase it from 30 to 75,
Opo.
as far as the bill in the Senate is concerned, which, where did you get the 75 to begin with? We just grossed it up by inflation
Opo.
since 1994.
Yes,
Yun
sir.
lang naman yun eh. Di
Yes,
ba?
sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, so, makatarungan lang naman yun eh. From 1994, it was 30. Today, you gross it up based on CPI.
Yes.
Lalabas more or less 75.
Yes.
So yun, makatarungan lang yun. Ha? Now, let me also state for the record, in 1998, when you had it at 30, more or less, you were hitting 16 to 18% of revenue to GDP, or tax effort to GDP at that time. Whereas today, you're down to 13%. Okay? Now, the question is, magkano ang nakolekta natin beyond 30 to 75? That is the appropriate question. Kasi kung wala naman kayo nakokolekta nga pala, there's nothing to lose.
Mr. Chair, there's an initial submission ng data ng BIR to the chairman po. Ang alam ko po na nandun po sa data nila, taxable benefits is around 96 billion.
Where is that here?
Kasi
Can I have
later
a
na
copy?
later na pong nasubmit.
Okay. So,
That also,
I've not seen it
Senator
yet.
Recto, yung,
Oo.
but that figure lang, parang it sounds a little overstated. Kasi 96 billion would already be at least half of the total collection sa income.
Ano po
eh.
yun?
So it's a little hard to
Taxable
believe
base po
na
yun. Apo.
half would come from the 13th month
Yun po yung
bonus,
base,
diba?
Mr. Chair.
Ulitin ko yung tanong ko, ha? Maliwanag ang tanong ko, simple lang. And you've had months, if not years, to study this issue already. Okay? Magkano ang nakokolekta from 30 to 75? Huwag natin lituin yung tao.
Kung wala kayong datos, sabihin nyo na lang na wala kayong datos. So, kasi from my impression from your submission, yun nga wala kayong datos from 30 to 75. You're just working backwards. Tinitingnan nyo magkano nakokolektang buwis, tapos inassume nyo na lahat nabibigyan ng 30,000 at lahat pag napasa ito, mabibigyan ng 70,000.
Sir, yung pong sa 2011, admittedly, wala po kami nung data pa ng 1604 na buo. Pero ngayon po,
At using the 1604, anong taon yon?
ngayon lang po kasi namin kinuha yung isang buong
Hindi,
data.
that's why. Let's put it on the record. Kailan yun inumpisahan gamitin yung 1604? And kailan siya naging mandatory? Kasi kung hindi mandatory yun, hindi fill-upan yan ng taxpayer.
That was supposed to be since 1981 when the withholding agents are mandated to submit the 1604 CF. I'd have to verify with the BIR, sir.
Pending yung question ni
Apo,
Senator Recto.
so ganun po. Yung pong, when we,
Ito na lang, let me refresh also your memory and based on the data of the DOF and the BIR. Ha? In 2013, we collected 246 billion. Collection 2013. Individual. Income tax. Diba? Total na to. Withholding on wages, 200. Individual income tax, 14. Sinama ko pa nga dito yung capital gains na 10. Sinama ko na dito yung withholding at source na 20. Total individual, 246. I'm already being generous with you here. Okay? So kung 246 ang nakolekta, and you said that 90 billion ang 13-month bonuses?
Hindi po. Yun po yung taxable na 13-month.
Okay, balik
The
tayo
base. Taxable base po.
So, it is a portion of the 246, I suppose. Tama? It has to be.
The tax of that, yes, sir.
Okay.
The tax on that.
So, kung i-divide natin to 13 months at hindi lang to 12, 20 billion lang ang pinag-uusapan natin. On the average. Okay? That's assuming you're able to collect the 30 to 75 also. Ha? Now, parang masyadong malaki. Clearly, ito 40 billion na sinasabi ninyo. Ha? In fact, I've seen another study that you've submitted to us with regard to the proposal on increasing the threshold on income taxes naman. Diba? Mine, I follow the CPI index again. Mas mababa pa nga ang revenue loss dun. Yun ang hindi ko maintindihan. When I compare the two, how could the 13-month have a higher revenue loss than the adjustment in income taxes?
Yes.
Nakakapagtaka yun eh.
Kasi
Malayo.
you're correct, Senator Recto. Their estimate for the three bills, yung sa akin 43 billion on the third year, sa'yo 33 billion if I'm not mistaken. So
Ito 13-month lang to, sinasabi nyo 40 na kaagad ang mawawala.
Mr. Chair, again, yung po nung ginawa po kasi namin yung sa 2011, wala pa po kasi sa amin yung alpha list ng buo ng 2013. That's why sinabi din po namin during our meeting with the staff, nagre-refine po kami ng estimates using po ito na yung 2013 wherein lahat ng fields nandun na, even the taxable and the exempt incomes. So far, ang nagawa pa lang po namin is to get the profile talaga para to show to the committee and also the computation po kasi we're able to get the net taxable income based on the data and computation po ng rates.
Let's put it on record, what your response is here, no? Magkano ulit ang nakolekta ninyo? From 30 to 75. Do you have data that you can present to the committee? Kasi yan, actual dapat yan eh.
Mr. Chairman,
Hindi hula dapat ito eh.
yeah,
Actually.
kaya nga Mr. Chairman, we just got recently, late last week, yung actual database ng BIR, and we're looking at it.
Bakit late last week? Ilang taon nang pinag-uusapan natin to?
Late last week lang binigay ng BIR, Mr. Chairman.
So, tinuturo ninyo ang BIR?
Hindi naman sinasabing tinuturo kasi there's so many data requirements na binibigay sa BIR. What they normally give us is a process data. What we ask now are the raw data.
Okay. So, sa madaling salita, sa ngayon, wala kayong masagot sa komite kung magkano ang nakolekta ninyo from 30 to 75, and if, for example, we were to increase it to 75,000, you cannot say that there is a revenue loss. Kasi wala kayong kung magkano man yun eh.
I think there will be a revenue loss. The issue really is the magnitude. So, Mr. Chairman, yung initial estimates namin really need to be fine-tuned further based on the raw data that was given to us just recently. We will not rely on the process data
Yusek
of
Paul,
the BIR.
You, again, let me reiterate. Ito, fact na to eh. Nakolekta ninyo sa income tax to at most 246 billion. Are you saying that 40 billion here is 30 to 75?
Mr. Chairman, I cannot say that with certainty now because we just got the raw data.
But what
So,
I am quoting to you,
himay-himayin namin
yes.
yan.
But what I am quoting to you is certain. You collected 246 in
Yes, Mr.
2013.
Chairman.
Maliwanag to.
Yeah.
At most nga eh. Kasi dapat tanggalin ko pa yung capital gains. Withholding at source, 20. So, 216 lang.
Mr. Chairman, I wouldn't want to belabor the point of the 40 billion because we are now in the process of refining those estimates.
Yeah, you said, Paul, this is the problem kasi. The House has passed the measure. We have filed this I have filed this since 2010. This is the 4th year that we are discussing it. And until now, you've not provided the data to the committee. That is the problem. Di ba? Oh, so where do we start? Where do we start?
Mr. Chairman, we will
How
start.
do we proceed?
Yeah. What we can, because we will start from the raw data that we've been able to get from the BIR just late last week. So because in the past, what we normally do, we ask them for this information and they process it themselves. Now we're getting the raw data and we're the ones doing the processing ourselves. So, Mr. Chairman, I beg the indulgence of the committee that we be given some more time to fine-tune, particularly also your questions, how much do you actually collect from 30 to 70? Or 30 to 75 for that matter.
Mr. Chairman,
Go ahead,
if I may.
Senator.
Yeah. Etong 30 to 75, if you divide it by 12, that's just additional take-home pay of 3,750 a month. Kasi remember, ito 13-month and other bonuses na. Di ba? So if you divide it by 12 months, that's just additional 3,750. 45 divided by 12. Di ba? So napakaliit na to kung tutusin natin. This is very small. Kung tutusin natin, it is hard for me to believe that you will lose 40 billion.
Mr. Chairman, I think the more relevant, I mean, we can, I don't want to belabor the point on the revenue loss. I think what we should be also be looking at is sino bang makikinamag nito and in what, who are the
Ang
compensation
makikinabang
earners.
dito, Yusek, sasagutin ko yung tanong mo. Ang makikinabang dito ay all taxpayers na right now, look at the different bills we filed here, ha? You take it into totality as well, no? One is, hindi pa na-index to simula noong 1994. Binigyan kayo ng kapangyarihan to do this. Ayaw niyong gumalaw. Ha? From 1994 pa to, so 2 decades na kung tutusin natin. 20 years. Okay? This has not been adjusted. So Congress is doing it right now. Okay? From 30 to 75. Then there's another bill on income tax rates. Lahat tayo dito tinatanggap na natin yung bracket creep. Does anyone disagree with the bracket creep?
I think the bracket creep is real.
Correct. So makatarungan lang to eh.
Yeah, wala naman
Oo.
akong issue dun sa bracket creep, Mr.
Oo.
Chairman, on the one could argue there's an equity erosion. What we are really asking the committee is that if we can look at it more holistically,
You said we are looking at it holistically.
including the revenue neutrality, which during our last hearing,
Yusek Paul, let me get into that as well. Huh? I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, if I'm jumping. Huh?
Please go ahead, Senator. Because it's pertinent because the computations will be based on the same data.
Yes, CPI kasi eh. Okay, now. On the income tax as well, tinatanggap natin may bracket creep na. Maliwanag yun. Let me point out also, many information data has already been shown here that we're one of the highest in Southeast Asia, if not the highest. Now, none of these studies have shown also that we still have other payroll taxes. Halimbawa, I'll give an example. Government employees, magkano ang payroll tax ang kinakaltas sa sweldo ng GSIS? Liban sa income taxes. Pag salary grade 23 ka, lalabas 32% ng binabayaran mo. Is that correct? Yusek Paul? Salary grade 23. Director level ka sa gobyerno. Ang rate mo ngayon, 32%. Okay? Kung idadagdag ko pa yung kaltas ng GSIS, magkano ang kaltas ng GSIS, Yusek Paul? You tell me if we are not looking at it holistically. and whether or not the DOF and the BIR is looking at this holistically. Magkano ang kaltas sa GSIS? 9%. So kung 32 plus 9, nasa na tayo? 41% na. Tama? Kung pag-ibig pa, PhilHealth. Kaltas sa sweldo lang ang pinag-uusapan natin dito. So magkano na yon? Ngayon, kung sakaling salary grade 20 ka naman, nasa 25% ka na, dagdagan mo parang 9% sa GSIS, di anong rate mo na? So we are looking at it holistically. Now, dun sa sinasabi ninyong, you must pass a revenue measure. We did pass the sin tax measure. 50 billion na tayo dyan. Pasado na yan. Ano pa? Fiscal incentives? Hindi nagkakasundo pa ang DOF at DTI eh. Ang problema na sa inyo, hindi sa amin. Di ba? Kaya tumatagal. But where do we begin? And we are suggesting that let's start with this. And then let's take a look at the income tax as well. And then let's take a look at other measures. I agree with you, Yusek Paul. There are too many industries who are exempted. Naniniwala ko, tanggalin natin yan. Kasi yung maliliit hindi exempt, yung malalaki exempt. Nagkakasundo tayo dyan. Pero hinihintay rin namin yung data ninyo at yung position ninyo. Pero maliwanag dito sa bagay nito, may position na kami dito. Pinasa na nga ng House eh. Nagtataka nga ako kung bakit 70 lang ang pinasa nila eh. Kasi kung babatayin natin yung CPI, di nasa 75 na dapat. Di ba? Okay, so, yes please, with the permission of the chair, yes.
Regarding the magnitude, no? Ang punto lang naman namin is the revenue neutrality. You mentioned kasi we have social expenditures and we want also to increase our investment to GDP ratio to 5% of GDP kasi we need to be competitive.
Yusek Paul, alam na namin lahat yan, nabasa na namin sa dyaryo lahat yan. Nasa committee deliberations na tayo ngayon. Kung sasabihin ko sa inyo na, let's improve tax administration. Sa BOC, marami pa rin korupsyon. Doon tayo tumingin, bakit kailangan legislation? That's another angle to it. But what is on the table now is makatarungan ba na i-adjust na natin ang income tax brackets, i-adjust na natin itong 13-month pay from 30 to 75 na hindi hula-hula. Ginamit natin dito yung CPI index. Di ba? Yun ang pinag-uusapan natin dito. And we've been discussing this for several months. Several months. We're asking you to explain now what you have said already in the papers as well. And it's the first time I see a computation, at least. Thank you for that. Na sinasabi ninyo na mawawala 40 billion. Ngayon, tama lang na tanungin namin. At nakakabahala naman yung 40 billion kung sakasakali. But let me also point out, Yusek Paul, that 40 billion, magkano ba ang savings sa budget every year? Lumalabas, kulang-kulang 100 billion eh. Yun din eh. Okay. So what can we use that for? To provide more fairness and equity into our system. Masyadong malaki na yung buwis na binabayaran ng pangkaraniwan. Di ba? Kaltas sa sweldo ka agad eh.
Mr. Chairman, at a personal level, I agree with you 100%. It's just that as fiscal managers, if there's a revenue hole, we need to plug it. You mentioned savings. The savings only happens because hindi nagastos ng agency. And it's not, I don't think it's a savings by design. There is also a absorptive capacity issue of some of the agencies.
Yun na nga eh, hindi kayang gastusin. Bakit nating kinakaltas sa sweldo ng mamamayan? Di balik na lang natin. That is the point. Yusek Paul. But again, let's go back to this issue before we jump too much forward. The fact is, we're collecting only 216 billion in 2013. And nothing here tells us that you're collecting from the 13-month or whatever. There's no data, no information given to the committee yet, as far as that is concerned. We cannot wait forever and a day for the DOF and the BIR here. Yes.
Suggestion. I mean, we agree naman na we need to address the income tax, the bracket creep. Is it possible to include the 13-month issue to that, the whole restructuring issue? Kasi meron din tayong, actually the de minimis value is already 94,000 pesos. If you look at it from that perspective.
So are you suggesting let's increase it to 94,000 instead?
What I'm suggesting is that let's not do it piecemeal. Let's take the 13-month together with the income tax.
That's what we are doing, Yusek Paul. That's why we are having this hearing today. There are several bills here, isn't it, Yusek Paul? What are the bills here in the committee right now? It is the 13-month, it is the income taxes. Yes, we're looking at it together.
Also the marginal income earner.
Marginal
exemption.
income earners
Yeah.
Kasi
as well.
para pinaka-simple sana yung, although we still need to, I mean, conceptually, wala nang deductions, lower the rates, tapos, tignan mo na lang what would be the threshold that would essentially be...
We don't understand what you're saying, Yusek Paul.
Flat tax for all.
No,
Is that what you're
it's-
saying?
It's just right now kasi may mga deductions, diba?
Tanggalin yung deductions.
Pero taasan yung threshold, but at the same time,
You know the problem, Mr. Chairman, with these suggestions, he's talking from thin air.
Yeah, walang bills na ganun.
Show us
Yusek,
something. You've not shown us anything.
Maganda. We're open to counter proposals na tingin nyo mas
that's why
nakakatulong
we're willing to work closely with
gobyerno.
you, Mr. Chairman.
Ang problema natin, Yusek, sorry to cut you short, no? Yung oras nga natin talaga eh. Alam naman natin by gitna ng sunod na taon, politika na yan di ba? Minsan nga ngayon parang 2016 is taking over our work already. So sana, yung meron na tayong datos para we can proceed, di ba? Pero sangayon kami sa inyo na dapat holistic o buo yung tingin natin. At tama si Senator Recto na sana isaalang-alang din ng DOF yung sitwasyon ng bawat empleyado, bawat pamilya, at wag lang iuna yung kapakanan ng gobyerno, kumbaga, 'di ba? Kasi parang yun ang lumalabas sa usapin natin Nauuna yung kapakanan ng gobyerno kaysa sa kapakanan ng mga pamilya at saka ng mga empleyado, yung mga swelduhan, mga trabahador. So anyway, Senator Rector, can we proceed with the DOF presentation? Go ahead. Pero aminado na kayo na hindi to based on actual data, but it was, in a sense, assumed data, kumbaga.
Estimated
Datos
po
na,
siya, based
oo.
po siya sa 2010, again, distribution. Pinagmula naman po siya,
Oo.
yung BIR data distribution,
Oo.
based on gross income.
Kasi inassume natin lahat ng taxable na empleyado ay tumatanggap na 30,000 bonus. Hindi ko ba yan ang assumption natin?
Yung pong nandun lang po sa
Siyempre, hindi yung minimum. Siyempre, hindi natin
Opo.
sinabi yung minimum kasi hindi na nga sila nagbabayad ng buwis. Mas
Opo.
lalo na siyempre, hindi sila
Opo,
nagbabayad
that could be
ng
an
30,000
extreme
bonus.
assumption, Mr. Chair. But
It's
again,
very extreme. So
Opo.
my point, the point that I'm driving at is, yung extreme assumption, malamang overstated yung estimate of loss natin. Diba?
That's why, Mr. Chair, given the 2013, the more refined and the more detailed distribution that we have, which actually we gave to you na po din. Makukuha na po natin yung exact.
I'm still working on what you gave me from last Thursday, no? Yun
Yes,
ang
sir.
natingnan ko.
Yes, sir.
And
Yes, sir.
ang figure is 39 billion.
Yes, sir.
At ang assumption din doon, ang pangalawang assumption nyo, is that pag napasa itong 13-month exemption, lahat makakatanggap ng 70,000 bonus dun sa 5 million taxpayers natin, kumbaga. Di ba? Yun ang assumption ninyo.
The excess,
Yes.
Mr. Chair.
They will get the maximum. Minax out nyo, kumbaga,
Yes,
yung
Mr.
exemption.
Chair.
Sa akin, parang hindi based in reality yun Hindi yun ang reality Pag tinignan mo lang siguro yung mga kumpanya. Tanungin niyo pa lang, Senator Recto.
With the permission of the chair.
Yes, go ahead.
I'm looking at the data submitted by the DOF because it's the first time I look at this again. Present total tax due, 158 billion. Ito galing sa inyo to. Proposed total tax due, 119. Ergo, revenue loss, 39. Ibig sabihin nito, Mr. Chairman, 2011 to, Okay. 2013, as we already established, 246 minus the 30 is 216. How could the 13-month be 158? Parang ganun lumalabas eh.
158 ata yung collection, Senator Recto, for...
Yeah, from the 13-month.
Hindi, for total yan. But it's an older figure. So yung 158 naging 216 over the years.
Okay, ulitin ko lang We are talking here from 30 to 75.
Yes. Wala silang datos nun,
Correct.
Senator Recto.
Okay. So, kung wala silang datos, there's no way you can do this to begin with.
Well, ang importante is para sa publiko, Senator, is that they understand ano yung inassume ng...
Correct.
Ng,
I understand. I understand.
Yeah.
Okay, now, ulitin ko yung sinabi ko. In 2013, they collected 216. Here, ang basehan to begin with.
2011.
Okay, so, pero hindi pa rin ganun kalayo yan eh. Hindi ganun kalayo yan eh. Total tax due, 158. How can it be 3/4 of what you collected already? Coming from 13-month pay and other bonuses. That is the point I'm trying to make. First page pa lang tayo. 158, because of the exemption from 30 to 75, magiging 190 na lang. Ergo, 40 billion. Loss.
Malaki nga. Kaya nga, halos lahat nung binabanggit natin, Senator, pinag-uusapan natin, masyadong malaki talaga.
Masyadong malaki talaga.
Imposible, kumbaga.
Okay. Ang kinatatakutan ko, Mr. Chairman, kaya ako binanggit ito is, okay, so babalik sila a week, a month from now, or I don't know what the date will be. And then when they come back, it will be the same. Matagal na kasing, I hope you don't mind, Mr. Chairman, and Yusek Paul, no? Na 4 na taon na natin final to eh.
Chairman, I think now will be different because instead of relying on the BIR processing the data, we got the raw data from them. So we'll do the analysis.
Ang ginawa ho ng Kamara, Senator Yusek, is that hindi nila tinanggap yung estimates nyo, in effect. Hindi nila tinanggap yung estimate nyo ng revenue loss. Kasi nakausap ko si Congressman Kimbo, who's the chairman of the House panel. At sa computation sila, less than 2 billion at 70,000 ceiling ang computation nila. That's why we invited Professor Kimbo. Some say she's the better Kimbo. But with the UP School of Economics, and she has a presentation on this. So kung we'll give the DOF some time to wrap up their presentation, and then we'll go to the UP, and then we'll go to BIR for sa marginal income. So DOF, go ahead, tapusin natin yung...
Okay, so finally...
Kasi since you admitted you're working on more refined measures,
yes,
maybe,
yes, Mr. Chair.
Tapusin nyo na lang yung sa inyo.
So actually yun lang po. So we just applied it, and then we, just like what Senator Recto said, kung ano po yung nakuha namin doon, we get the net based po doon sa present.
So, okay na, DOF? Can we hear from UP, with the permission of Senator Recto and the other persons? Can we hear, I think Dr. Kimbo has a PowerPoint. Can we set it up, please? This was, Professor Kimbo gave a talk 2 Fridays ago to the UP School of Economics. It's precisely on the tax measures pending in Congress. So yung 13th month at yung proposals of Senator Recto and myself and other senators and congressmen to refine and para makahabol sa pagtaas ng presyo ng mga bilihin. So Professor Kimbo, go ahead please.
Magandang hapon po, Senators Angara and Recto. Magandang hapon din sa aking kapwa taxpayers. If you don't mind, so I have two sets of slides. Before I show you the estimates of revenue losses, I'd like to show some slides to explain why I fully support the proposal of increasing the ceiling from 30,000 to 70,000. All right, so I'd like to begin with the idea that the income tax system is largely inequitable. And I think the most important form of inequity is the so-called horizontal inequity. In other words, similarly situated taxpayers end up not paying similar taxes. And to explain this, let me talk about the labor force as a whole. There are three general classes of workers. Next, please. All right, so we have salary and wage earners, and they would comprise 58% of the entire labor force. And then we have self-employed professionals and self-employed non-professionals. And just to note, of the 58% wage and salary earners, 72% po doon ang minimum wage. In other words, only 27% of your 58% would pay for the 236 billion in 2013. So if you multiply 27% by 58%, that's only 16. In other words, only 16% of all workers would shoulder the 85% of income taxes. So that's that's horizontal inequity. So going back, can you previous slide? No, previous. Back. All right. So I'd like to show po that just again to further show horizontal inequity, I'd like to show that your salary and wage earners end up paying more taxes than the self-employed professional and non-professional for the same income decile. In other words, take a salary and wage earner, take a self-employed professional, take a self-employed non-professional, earning more or less the same amount, we can easily show that your salary and wage earner pays so much more taxes. All right? Next, please. All right, so that's the picture of horizontal inequity. So each group would be a decile. In short, if you're within a decile, more or less, you earn the same income. So if you look at every decile, makikita po natin na di hamak po na mas malaki ang buwis na binabayad ng salary and wage earner. Next. So I support the proposal because primarily the proposal will basically make salary and wage earners gain. Because your 13th month pay is only, your 13th month bonus is only enjoyed by your salary and wage earners. All right? And, medyo magkaiba po ang ating computation po sa pag-inflate ng 30,000 in 1994. I ended up with the 70,633, but more or less we're in the same neighborhood. So, and obviously, if we increase the ceiling from 30 to this amount, the effect is to reduce taxable income by at most 40,000 pesos for workers with at least 30,000 pesos per month. So, hindi po lahat ng workers ang apektado dito, kundi yun lang pong kumikita ng at least 30,000 pesos. Next, please. And how many are these workers?
Is that monthly, Professor Kimbo?
Yes.
50,000 a month?
Yes.
Yun ang estimate nyo na tumatanggap, ang mag-apektuhan nung...
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, so how many workers would gain from this proposal? Using data from the 2013 Labor Force Survey, only 1.99% of all salary and wage earners have a basic monthly pay of at least 30,000 pesos. So if there are 22 million salary and wage earners, multiply 1.99%, only 442,000 workers would be affected by this increase in ceilings.
There, sorry, Professor.
Yes, no problem.
Can we go back to the previous slide? There are 22, this is addressed to the DOF, may 22 million tayong salary and wage earners.
Apo.
That's based on the Labor Force Survey.
Which is quarterly.
Bakit 10 million lang yung filers natin ng income tax?
Well, there's a total of 38
So,
million.
parang kalahati lang siya. Ano nangyari dun sa kalahati?
Well, okay. So salary and wage earners, we assume that that's 100% compliance, right?
Yes.
But on the average, based on the FICE, which is a Family Income and Expenditure Survey, the compliance rate among professionals is just 41% and 31% for self-employed non-professionals. So it's really very low compliance rates that would result in the very low number of taxpayers.
So you would say
so about a third or so
maybe the 10 or 11 or 12 million
don't pay.
salary and wage earners.
Not salary and wage
Siguro
earners,
informal, ano sila, informal economy.
but informal or your
They're,
self-employed. Yeah.
Yeah. So, okay, sige. Go ahead.
All right, so now let's move on to the, well, this is my back of the envelope estimates, maximum loss. If you only have 442,000 workers affected, and let's say that just extreme, let's assume that all of these not only earn 30,000 but earn 70. In short, BIR loses 40,000 pesos from each of these 442,000 workers. And you multiply it by 32%, which is the highest tax rate, you only lose 5.6 billion pesos. All right? Okay, but then, next please. But then for some reason I love numbers, so I wanted to come up with more detailed numbers. What I did was I took the 236 billion, I took that number from BIR tables, and the challenge was to decompose 236 by tax bracket. Of course, it's challenging because I don't have their information. And I used what is called Merge 2012 Labor Force Survey with the 2013 Family Income and Expenditure Survey. So these are national surveys run by the National Statistics Office. It has a sample of about 70,000 workers. And so
2012 FIs?
2012 LFS merged with the 2013 FIs. Okay. So the LFS gives me the income per worker. The FIs gives me the household income taxes paid. Okay? And then I put in some assumptions like income underreporting. Of course, people would say, how do you know that the declared income is the correct income of a worker? Okay, so I said, well, that's fine. Let's correct for income underreporting. The literature says it can be as high as 35% for self-employed. Just based on the FICE itself, I took the average income of teachers, compared it with the DepEd salary sched. There's like a difference of about 10 to 15%. So I said, let's throw in a 15% income underreporting correction. And then in addition, the FICE is truncated, meaning the maximum income in the FICE is only 10 million pesos. So what I did was I augmented my data with a top 500 list from the BIR. So from the top 500 list, the minimum income there is 16 million, up to about 400 million reported income. So in other words, ang hindi ko na lang nakikita, so from using the FICE, I see 1 peso to 10 million. Using the BIR top 500, I see 16 million up. I don't see the 10 to 16 million. What I did was that I used that as a balancing figure to hit the 236 billion. So there's some imperfections there, all right? Okay.
To estimate how many would fall in the 10 to 16 million bracket, approximately. Oh. Would we know?
From where? Sorry.
Would we know how many people fall into that, yung window na hindi mo nakikita? Yung 10 to 16. Oh.
I'm still waiting for data from BIR. My guess is 2,000 or so. Well, that's a guesstimate. So
2,000 people, 2,000 taxpayers. So it's very small, actually.
It's very small,
very
you know.
Small.
There's just, it's crazy. I mean, so few people earn.
Yeah, 2011 it's 600 according to Sandra. Thanks.
Okay, anyway. All right, so next please. So these are my base scenario estimates. So as you can see, the total is it's slightly over than the 236 billion actually collected. And the reason is because I simply assume standard deductions for the self-employed. Of course, there's a 40% optional standard deduction, which gives you lower taxes paid. But then I just opted for standard deductions, which is probably what explains why I slightly overshoot 236 billion. And going back to the question of Senator Rector earlier, my fearless estimate of tax revenues collected from the 30,000 to 70,000 peso worker is about 10.5 billion. So I don't know. Hopefully, tama naman. All right. So what I did, next please.
10 billion.
That's my guess.
Yeah,
that's my estimate.
So 30 to 7. So therefore, your range then is 5 to 10 billion ang loss, more or less.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right. So anyway.
Sorry, Professor.
Yes.
Sorry again, But is that 30 to 75 or 30 to 70? Just to be precise, Kasi yung housework on 70.
30 to 70. 30 to 70. 30 to 70. All right. So I mean, just to briefly explain. So mean income is from the FICE. Taxable income is computed by applying the tax rules on the FICE numbers. Tax due, simple computation from the tax rules. And then the number of workers comes from the labor force survey. So I just simply multiply tax due by the number of workers. That's how I arrive at the totals. Next, please. All right, now for the revenue effects of the increase in ceilings, what I simply do is I change the ceiling when I compute the taxable income. So going back, previous slide please, going back to this slide, I simply change the taxable income column, assuming that you are affected by that increase in ceiling. In other words, only if your income exceeds 30,000 pesos. Okay. And then I also assume that 68% of the top 500 taxpayers will have a 13th month bonus. Next, please. All right, so these are my estimates. So I did a simulation. I'm sorry that they're very small.
Why 68%?
So 32% are based on Senate reports. So 32% professionals of the. So in the labor force, 30% are professionals. So 68% would be salary and wage. Therefore, would have a 13th month. The numbers are extremely small. I'm very sorry, but for 70,000, the estimate of the revenue loss is 1.659 billion. And note that only those in red would be those that would be the groups for which we expect revenue loss. And this would be your top tax brackets. Next, please. Right. This picture.
We go to
here,
75K. Did you do the numbers for that?
the additional number of workers going from 70 to 75,000 is just 6,000 workers. If you do a very simple computation, the maximum loss is increased by like 13%. So 5.6 billion plus 13%. That would be the estimate.
13% of 5.6 billion.
Yeah.
Additional
on the maximum.
So that's about 700 million. So 700 million plus 1.6,
Yeah.
about 2.3, something like that.
Mr. Chairman, so I'm sorry, Dr. Kimbo, but you were saying 1.7 na lang ang loss?
Yes, because only
70,000.
Yeah, but how kanina it was 5 billion.
that's maximum.
Yes, maximum. Then it went up to 10 billion.
No. 10
Because you
billion
said
is the tax.
What is collected from
taxes
30 to
collected from the
75?
Yeah, total taxes.
From 30 to 75.
Yes.
She used different methods.
Workers
Senator.
earning 30 to 75. But the 10 billion
got it,
is from
got
the
it.
whole year.
Okay, got it. Okay. And right now you're saying only 1.7.
Only 1.7. Kasi po,
So it's a far cry from the 40 billion.
yes. And the reason is that, well, when we computed the maximum potential loss, we assumed that you lose 40,000 from every single one of those 442,000 workers. But, if you're in 32, then you lose 2,000. If you're in
Correct.
38,
I
you lose
agree
8.
totally. I agree
So,
totally.
and then using the actual distribution of workers from the labor force survey, that's what we compute. So this one po has 70,000 records of workers. We just literally recomputed
No, that
their
does not
taxable income.
Yeah, that does not include yet behavioral.
Yes, doesn't.
Meaning to say, if 30%, what is our savings rate? Roughly 26 to 30%. That assuming whatever money they make, they'll
They will
spend
spend.
70%, they'll spend
Absolutely.
70%, kikita ang gobyerno rin naman sa VAT na 12%
Yes.
on the 70%, and then on the 30%, mapupunta sa bangko yan, assuming,
Yes.
at pagkakumita naman yan, magbabayad ng 20% interest income sa gobyerno din
Opo.
naman yan.
Yes po.
So that number will still go down.
Yes, if you subtract, say, 77% of all expenses would be VATable. So 77% times 12% times your 1.6 billion. That's what you gain back.
Gain back, right?
Yeah.
And then, yung interest income pa nun, kung napunta sa
That's
bangko.
just first order effects. Then
That's
can
right.
go anyway.
Yeah, Doctor, just one last point. I'm sorry to butt in, but I heard you say earlier that your computation was at 70 based on the CPI.
Yes.
Okay.
I don't know why po.
Okay.
70,000,
I do have a
60.
computation. I'll just pass it on to you
Sige
for
po,
you to
we can
verify for
compare.
us, so we can compare,
Sige
because
po.
my computation for 2014 will already be 82,000. So I'll just pass this on to you. Thank you.
Maybe it's because of the different. Did you rebase?
My base is 1994.
Yeah, but there's sometimes your CPIs have different bases. So it's been rebased.
Yes, 2006. What did you use?
No, so the base is 2006. So what did you use a single series? Because if you use two series with two different bases, you'll have to rebase and have a single base.
rebase na to.
Rebase
Anyway,
na
we'll
yan.
just pass it on to you.
I'll just check
To
it for
take a
you.
look because
Sige po.
lumalabas dito in our computation, it's roughly 82,000.
I'll check that po.
Yes. What is the NEDA figure? We do also have a figure from NEDA. We'll pass it on
The
to
ways
you.
and means figure of the house is about 70 rin po.
Okay.
But we can check.
Yes, thank you.
Sige po. I just have one more point to make. Actually, this would be the distribution of income taxes by ceiling amount. So as you go from this side to that side, we have increasing ceilings. So note that the bars don't change. So in other words po, wala masyadong distributional impact itong ceiling kasi napakaliit naman po. If any, there would be slight equity gains for the middle class. So there would be a slight reduction in the share of income taxes paid by your middle class salary and wage workers, like a 1 percentage point.
Yeah, how would you define the middle class?
Well, it's kind of very just 500 max. So meaning not including your top taxpayers.
A year,
yeah,
making 500,000.
500,000.
The
top,
maximum.
Yeah.
And
Maximum na
yeah.
yun.
what would the bottom figure be for the middle class?
Sorry.
You're talking about the range, di ba? When middle class 500,000
Yeah.
making maximum 500,000.
No, sorry, I didn't really make some. This is really just rough. That your salary and wage, that blue thing there would be salary and wage earners with an income of like 500,000 per year. So that would be roughly earning 40,000 a month.
The indulgence of Senator Recto, can we call a health break of 2 minutes? Yeah. And then Professor Kimbo. Thank you. Thank you.
Sige po. Oo, sige. Oo. 70,000 workers.
Basic lang. Basic. Basic.
So, kung ano lang ang reported? Basic.
Pero doon sa questionnaire po, ano bang...
The question is basic. The question is basic. So, but then that's why I put in an income
Yung
under
public
reported.
use files ng PICE, ang
Yes.
ginamit niya. Magkabi ka after start.
The paper you mean?
Paper mismo.
I'm still revising it eh.
Okay, sige po.
So, I need about like I need about like 2 weeks.
It's okay. Or
I can-
yung draft po ba pwede? Para lang ano pwede. Sige, okay lang ma'am. 2 weeks
I
na.
hope you understand.
It's okay,
I mean,
it's
it's
okay. I
really,
understand.
I just really wanna...
But-
Just wait 2 weeks or so.
It's okay ma'am.
Sige pa, I'll email it to you po.
Thank you.
Dr. Kimbo, informally, no?
Sige po.
We were assuming earlier that the 70% savings will be spent one time on VAT. Diba?
One-
Behavioral, no?
Okay.
Because we
Yes po.
one
Kami
time lang
rin
yun,
po.
12%, di ba? Okay.
Kaya lang
But
po,
you know,
not all are
velocity of
vatable.
money.
Not all are vatable po eh. So,
Understood.
on the average,
Yeah,
77% would be vatable.
But if velocity of money were faster, you collect more. Kasi
Yeah.
iikot yan eh. The idea is to promote velocity.
Absolutely.
So with that, you may gain every single
Yes,
loss.
and
The
more.
best way to raise revenue is to make the economy grow at a faster rate. Generic growth, di ba?
Yeah.
Pwede rin makahingi ng database na ay yung computation.
The computations, my PowerPoint, you mean? The database po, I cannot give it to you po. Bumili na lang kayo. kasi meron po kaming data policy sa school. I cannot give you our public use files. I'm sure you will get it for free. Ano naman sila eh, kung gobyerno naman po, I think they gave it.
Okay, let's resume the meeting. Professor Kimbo, go. You can pick up where you start off. Thank you.
I just have one more point to make po. Next, please. So there's a concern that firms might be strategic, meaning because of the increase in ceilings, maybe
They will transfer.
they would transfer some
They
of the basic
Some form of
compensation down to the
arbitrage,
13th month.
Correct.
So here I showed two scenarios. Basically, so one would be where a firm offers an annual compensation of 1.2 million, and for that there are two options. If the firm is straight, then the taxable income, straight meaning di siya mandadaya, no? The taxable income would be 1.13 million. But then, if the firm would be strategic and say, instead of paying 100,000 per month, basic, sasabihin niya, I'll pay you na lang 50, and then the rest, lagay na lang natin sa 13th month. Of course, you'll end up with the same taxable income because this guy makes more than 70,000, which is our ceiling. Right? So obviously, strategic behavior only makes sense for workers earning 30 to 70,000 per month, which is the lower table. Okay? And then again, I assume here that the annual basic compensation of the worker is 600,000. I show it for two options, where option one would be where the firm is straight, option two would be where the firm would be strategic and move down. Instead of paying 50,000 per month, would just pay the worker 20,000 per month and pay the rest as 13th month. Here, the difference in the taxable income is 20,000. So, sige, it could be there's some validity to that. We lose some 20,000 in taxable income with this form of strategic behavior. But the question is, will the worker actually agree to receiving only 20,000 when in fact you were quoted a 50,000 monthly pay? Of course, there's consumption smoothing issues there. You can't tell your son to just eat half he usually does, right? And then mag-binge na lang pag Pasko. So there could be limits to that. But then again, in this blue thing, let's assume at the extreme that every single firm does this strategic behavior. How much do we lose? So there are only 407,000 workers earning 30 to 70,000, right? Suppose you lose 20,000 in taxable income for each of these, and you apply a 32% tax rate. How much do you lose as a result of strategic, unscrupulous behavior? It's 2.6 billion. So
On top of the earlier.
that's on top of the 1.7. So again, let me just
4.3.
conclude. I fully support the proposal on the grounds of horizontal equity, and this is really to protect the salary and wage earner. Improved equity comes at a small price. That's 1.7 billion. Strategic behavior, of course, would be there. If you throw in strategic behavior, you could lose up to 4.3 billion. But then again, there's a potential, there's a maximum theoretical loss of 5.6. So, nandyan lang po tayo, siguro 4.3 to 5.6. And if you're worried very much about strategic behavior, there are many things that you can do. For example, you can impose a ceiling on the ratio of the 13th month to monthly basic pay. You can say, cannot exceed 10 times or something. Or perhaps you can put limits on the frequency of paying your 13th month. You can say you can only pay it out twice in a year or thrice in a year max. You can't do it 12 times in a year. What some people do is they break it up into parts and pay it throughout the year. So, that's where my presentation ends.
Prof, wala yung sa income taxes.
Oh,
You didn't bring that
Yeah,
one.
but
Can
I
we
can
invite
say a
you
few things.
when
Sure.
you have that?
Sure.
Because I know your talk covered also the income taxes, and you had nice proposals there. So we'll just invite you back
Sure, pa.
if that's okay. Thank you.
Essentially, what were the proposals? Is it
Could you maybe tell
Yes.
us in brief what your
yeah,
proposals
so
were?
while I'm writing a paper entitled "Should We Rethink Income Taxation in the Philippines?" So I look at indexing your tax brackets with inflation. So I also computed the potential loss. Right now it's estimated at about 16 billion. So that's one
only 16 billion for the indexing,
for the indexing.
which is more or less similar to my proposal.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then number two, to try to address horizontal equity, you really need to make your self-employed pay. I mean, so it's really an issue of increasing your tax base. And I argue that you cannot do that unless you restructure how you collect income taxes. And so I show a simplified tax scheme which doesn't have deductions. It's a straight, pretty much it's like the system of Hong Kong, where you have a standard rate. Hong Kong's is 15%. I propose 17%. And then of course for a big chunk, but then it would be 30.
Even for the lowest, that's
for the
lowest.
lowest, it's like I think 9% if I remember correctly, and then for the highest, meaning exceeding 10M, it's something like 30%. And
So it's fourth year, 9, 0, 9, 17,
yes,
and 30.
But the big chunk talaga is that 17%.
It's in the 17%.
Of course, it would be nice to have parallel systems, pretty much again like Hong Kong, meaning if when you compute, you're better off with the standard way to compute, then that's fine. So,
I have your paper in front of me, Dr. Kimbo. You propose that if your tax income is 173,000 to 445,000, you will be 9% ang buwis mo.
Yes, kaya lang
How
po,
did you come up with 173? Kasi yun yung may exempt.
Okay.
Is that's the equivalent of a marginal income earner?
Well, what I did was I looked at the existing 7 tax brackets, adjusted it for inflation, and then basically consolidated some of the groups and ended with that. But that has been revised po. Sorry, I made a mistake in the computation of my tax brackets. There was a...
We'll just have you back if that's okay with you.
But
Dr.
then the
Kimbo.
bottom line is, in fact, the revenue losses that I've computed is lower. There, I think it's 23 billion, but then in my revised estimates, it's just 16 billion. With a simplified...
Would any of the deciles result in a higher
yes,
tax?
Possibly. But let me...
For the lower income? Because we also ran some numbers, and ang resulta nga pagka you go... the lowest would have a bigger, and maybe that's something we want to avoid.
But maybe tops 1%.
Ang increase nila. Okay.
That's a potential problem.
Yeah, Yusek.
Please, Professor Kimbo.
Please, yeah.
On the strategic behavior, I just have a clarification. If you considered, for those that are near the minimum wage, now one can envision a scenario wherein they will lower their salaries to minimum wage and the rest will now be bonuses. So that would also be covered.
Again, sorry.
Kasi yung right now, kung you're just above minimum wage, anything above 1 peso more, you're taxed from the beginning. So, kung magiging...
Wage distortion, you want to address some kind of distortion.
So, ang gagawin, there'll just be an agreement with the employer na minimum wage, so wala na akong tax. So, the rest would be, yung 40 now, will be my increase, and I would not pay any tax.
Would agree to have a lower basic, lower than minimum, but then agree on a generous 13th month.
Yeah, so because it will be what's important for a worker is my net take-home pay.
But the point is, are they going to reach 30,000 per month if you have a minimum wage of what? That's going to be...
But there will be a few incidents that will do that. A few employers who will do that. But
you cannot really...
It's very difficult to measure.
And besides, the worker will not... Again, you're earning minimum wages. You can't afford to actually reduce
70,000.
Yeah. So I don't know.
Mr. Chairman, Dr. Kimbo, did you, in your proposal as well, no? And in the many bills here that has been filed also in the Senate, or in the House for that matter, no? I've not seen any studies yet in taking a look at a more holistic perspective as far as the income tax is concerned. No? Like I said, for government employees, issues of fairness, may dagdag 9% pa ang GSIS. Pag SSS ka, pareho ang salary grade level mo, or pareho ang sweldo mo, whether you're a public official or a private employee. Public employee, private employee. Ito may dagdag na kaltas na 9% pa pag gobyerno ka. Pag SSS ka, 3.6% lang kung hindi ako nagkakamali. So there's a huge distortion there, no? And as I mentioned earlier, the salary grade of 23 in the public sector is already paying 32%. If I add that 9%, that's already at 41%. That's probably more than double or triple what they're paying in Southeast Asia. Huh?
That's a very valid concern po. In fact, we just recently concluded a survey, and we're finding that GSIS employees, members, they don't benefit as much as your SSS members in terms of actual...
And yet they're contributing
and yet they're
three times
contributing
more.
Exactly. So, and then the inequity issue actually depends if you look
Okay.
at how people actually utilize the benefits.
Now, the other way of looking at it as well, Dr. Kimbo, is that the employer contribution in GSIS is 11% or 12%. So in effect, theoretically, kung wala
20,
yung employer contribution, that 12% could
Yeah.
have gone to the employee.
Yeah.
So yung kaltas sa empleyado ng GSIS is in effect 9% plus the employer contribution of 12.
Exactly.
That's 21%.
Yeah.
Ha? Pag sa SSS naman, ang kaltas lang ay 3.6. And then I think 6% yung employer. 8%, thereabouts, no? So, that's almost half. So, malaking diferensya yun. Okay? That's something that I suppose we should consider when we take a look at the tax bracket as well.
Yeah.
On the issue of fairness too, di ba?
Yeah.
Okay, now, one more point for the record, Mr. Chairman, as well, no? You will notice that more or less Metro Manila ka, minimum wage earner ka, husband and wife, pareho minimum wage earner. That's 240 each, that's 280,000 a year. Kung 140 each, husband and wife, tama? Okay? Pag tinaasan mo yung assuming bonuses na meron siya, based on what you said earlier, no? At 75 lang, isa. 275 yun. Okay? Your deductions, and the minimum wage tries to mimic nga pala yung deductions mo rin eh. Because your deductions, family of 4 is what? 200,000. 50, 50, 25 times 4, that's 200. So your first 200,000, if you have a family, husband and wife and 4 kids, is 200,000. Anything beyond that is taxable income. Di ba? So in effect, 230 kung 30,000 yung minimum wage. Ay, yung bonuses. At 75, that's 275. That's closer already to the 280 for the 2 minimum wage earners, no? Now, aside from the income tax, you still have that marginal income earners. Okay, I do have a proposal, but I understand I would also like to amend my proposal to jack it up even further on the marginal income earner, no? Taking into consideration as well that minimum wage earner income and the exemptions of 200,000. Okay, so in the bill, we looked at 140. Minimum wage earner, 140. But of course, the marginal income earner, negosyo yan eh, may expenses yan eh. Hindi tulad nung empleyado ka, tinatanggap mo lang for the work that you do. You get your salary. Ito may expenses to eh. So hindi maaaring 140 lang din yung gross income niya. Kasi may cost of sales yan, may cost of goods, may cost of sales, no? So I'm looking at amending it possibly, at the committee level later on. Kung 140 yan, and you know na it's roughly about 200 din naman yung exemptions mo, you gross it up by using the 40% optional standard deduction. Lalabas, if your gross revenue is 333,000, more or less, you should be considered a marginal income earner, considering that 40% of that 333 will be your expenses. Okay? You're left with 200, and if you have a husband and wife, family of 4, exempted ka na. Now, finally, on that point as well, no? Tignan natin, pareho ang income nyo, ikaw empleyado, ikaw negosyante ka. Na maliit na negosyante, marginal income earner ka lang. Empleyado ka, wala ka nang fina-file na percentage tax, compliance. Wala ka nang fina-file na income tax return. Wala ka nang fina-file na VAT return. Pero pag maliit kang negosyante, ang daming pahirap masyado sa compliance. Ha? Pa-file ka ng quarterly income tax. Magpa-file ka ng monthly and quarterly VAT. Wala naman sa batas yun. Ha? Magpa-file ka rin ng, kung hindi ka vatable, monthly and quarterly percentage taxes. Pareho lang, may business permit ka pa. May additional fees ka pa, registration fees. So, pareho lang ang kinikita ninyo. So, minsan, mas mataas pa yung compliance cost kaysa sa buwis na binabayaran mo. At yung pahiram. That's why we're not a country of entrepreneurs in that sense. Pinahihirapan natin eh. But we all know that Filipinos are entrepreneurial. Kaya lang masyado natin pinahihirapan. And these are some of the things that we want to hear from the Department of Finance, from the BIR. How do we make it easier for our small businessmen, entrepreneurs? Paano natin pamamadali, pagagaangin sa kanila? So, I just wanted to put on record, Mr. Chairman, since I think the next issue will be our marginal income tax proposals anyway, which I filed too. After looking at it even further, maybe the threshold, Mr. Chairman, should be roughly 333,000 gross income a year.
Since there's a proposal already, maybe the DOF could already do some advanced number crunching dun sa proposal ni Senator Recto. No? And we're very much open to setting a new amount, Senator Recto. No? If we could get some feedback from the other resource persons, the BIR, care to comment? Or are you happy with the comment of the DOF? Na kayo daw ang nagpapabagal sa datos.
Good afternoon, Your Honors. On the data problems that we're having, we're trying to solve it already with the DOF's help. We are really apologetic for that. On the marginal income earners, we are still of the same position, but we will consider the computations.
When you say you're of the same position, meaning you're sticking to your revenue regulation na 100,000 lang dapat ang exempt?
Yes, Your Honor. And also that.
And why is that? Why is your position at 100,000? Where did you get that 100,000 from?
90s pa yan, di ba? 90s figure
yes,
pa.
Your Honor. It was called from previous revenue regulations from 1994.
So that 100,000 again is 1994 level.
Yes, Your Honor.
So if you use the CPI, you're roughly at 200,000.
More, more probably.
If that is to be applied.
Tapos yung puntos ni Senator Recto, pagka may cost of business, cost of sales, kinain na yung 100,000 mo. Let's say you're a sari-sari store owner, tricycle driver ka, kumita ka nga ng 100,000, pero ubus na yun, di ba? Sa cost of living. Kasi cost of living ng isang pamilya, according to the, sino bang gumawa? PSA, Philippine Statistics, is close to 100,000. It's 96,000 for a family. So, kung isa lang ang nagtatrabaho sa pamilya, 100,000 lang ang in-exempt nyo, ubus rin naman yun eh. Kumbaga, malamang may utang pa yung taong yun eh, di ba? So I hope the BIR and the DOF will rethink your threshold along the lines of what Senator Recto said. Kasi gusto nga natin, ang polisiya natin, nag-i-encourage tayo ng mga nagne-negosyo. Yung nabanggit natin sa last hearing, tulad ng Singapore Senator, they really make it easy for the small businessmen in terms of compliance. And I think may presentation ng BIR dun sa e-registration, di ba? Baka gusto
yes,
niya
Your
ng...
Honor.
You want to present that now? Oh.
Okay.
Bago ba to? Is this a new program?
No, Senator. The e-reg is an old procedure. Yes.
What year pa yan?
4 years ago.
4 years?
Yes.
So relatively new, kumbaga. Sige, go ahead, please.
Good afternoon, Chairman. This is just a simple presentation on our e-registration system. So just to give you a short background, the Bureau of Internal Revenue is making it easy for a taxpayer to secure tax identification number and register online. Okay. So the e-registration offers a convenient online internet access to taxpayers' registration services, and this includes the issuance of TIN online to individual taxpayers, payment of registration fees, issuance of the certificate of registration. So we are making it available online for taxpayers to easily come over to BIR. So with it is e-TIN, which is a module of the e-reg system. It's a web-based application that allows online issuance of TIN to taxpayers. So there are functionalities involved in the e-registration, the generation of TIN, the generation of CORs, and payment of registration fees. So this system is available to single proprietors, professionals, mixed income earners. In fact, for our employers, they may get TIN via e-reg, which means employees need no longer come to BIR, but their employer should be able to get their TIN via the e-reg system. And this includes two persons in need of TIN under EO 98. So with e-TIN, as defined, this will be used by single proprietors, professionals, local employees to their employers, mixed income earners, or persons under EO 98. Question is TIN issued through e-TIN temporary? No.
This EO 98.
Sir, those are taxpayers with activity with government, like securing driver's license, so forth and so on. So e-TIN is a permanent number. Does the system require for a fee? No. No fees will be required under the e-reg system. Is securing more than TIN allowed? No also, because when you register via e-TIN, the system will be able to know if you are already issued a prior tax identification number. So all we have to do is have an internet, a computer, and a printer, plus a browser. So is TIN secured? We can simply say yes, it is with VeriSign, and we also have user validation and authentication during their login to the BIR website. So how do we make sure that TIN previously issued does not appear? Because based on data provided by taxpayer, we may be able to detect if there was already prior TIN issued to the taxpayer. That means we will not be having multiple TINs issued to a particular taxpayer. So all that the taxpayer will do is provide us basic information, especially so with their addresses, because from there we will be able to determine if they should be in a particular revenue district office. So for employees, they are usually registered to where their employers are registered. For single proprietors, professionals, and mixed income earners, their RDO code will be based on their business address. And for persons registering under EO 98, their registration is based on their registration address. So after getting my TIN, what do I do next? So if I will really go into business, then I will be going to the RDO to secure the secondary registration. So for employees, the TIN will also be used by the employers to report income received by these employees. And for those with EO 98, they will be presenting their TIN to government agencies that would be requiring the presentation of their TIN. That's all. So which means employees will be very much easy, including the marginal income earners, professional, can easily secure their tax identification and make registration via online activity. That's all. Good afternoon, sir.
Thank you, BIR, Miss Galban. Ganda pakinggan ho, no? Yung ganda. I'd like to know how it operates. Ilan pong na-process nyo through the e-registration?
The normal processing that we go through is an average of 3,000 taxpayers po.
Hindi, ilan ang na-issue? In the average, total number, how many have been issued through the e-registration?
The technical people are not.
Kasi, ano yun parang Obamacare, di ba? Ang ganda sa perfect sa on paper, pero nung first day pa lang, nag-bog down yung computer systems nila, di ba? So, gusto natin malaman kung ano yung capacity nitong. So, we'd like to know how many are issued a day, and you said it's 4 years. So, kung wala yung technical people ngayon, can you furnish us a list of how many you have issued? Tapos, anong database natin ng TIN ngayon? Ilan na bang Pilipino ang may TIN?
There are about 22,989.
Million siguro.
825 million.
Million ho siguro.
Sir, more or less.
22,989,000 TIN holders. So, can you break that down for us? Ilan po doon ang mixed income earner? Ilan po yung single prop? Ilan po yung...
We'll provide you.
Wala kayong datos ngayon?
Your Honors, we have submitted already a copy of this data. It's in a tabular form.
Can I have a copy? Kasi wala dito sa harapan ko. I don't have the copy. Baka pwede nyo i-flash. Can you flash it? Para makita ng lahat ng nandito. Sa estimate nyo, ma'am, ilan po ang na-issue through the e-registration? May 1 million, ho? Oo. Kasi siguro ang gusto nating, ang vision natin is more than half would go through online na lang, di ba? Especially yung galing sa probinsya, gano'n, di ba? So lahat nung may TIN, yung 22 million, nasa computer nyo ho yan. Very good. How do you verify the income? Kasi sa TIN, may income base yun, yung fee na babayaran sa TIN. Nakabase sa kita yun, di ba?
Basically, dun sa TIN issuance natin, Senator, there's no fee we asked from the taxpayer. But that's just an entry point for them to come to the Bureau of Internal Revenue and declare the income they will be receiving.
So, hindi whole processing ang nangyayari online.
Hindi, Senator. It's just the initial stage of registration for the taxpayer to go earn income.
It's only the application, kumbaga, ang naka-online.
Kaya lang, sir, meron din po kaming EFPS where taxpayers can also electronically file and electronically pay. So, we want to make them use of the electronic medium to easily file.
Paano ginagawa yung electronic pay? Through credit card?
No, sir. A taxpayer will simply enroll to our website if they would go over the electronic filing, and they will also have to enroll to any accredited agent bank to make an electronic page.
So mag-ahente pa kayo for electronic paying? You have to get through a bank or...
The taxpayer can choose the bank which is an internet-enabled bank, and then they will have to pay via debit system to their bank accounts.
How about paying through check? Pwede ba yun? Hindi.
Yes, Senator. Paying check is available.
Sa BIR? They can send a check to the BIR?
No, paying is to our accredited agent bank.
Okay. Sige, bigyan niyo na lang kami ng datos dito sa e-registration. We'd like to know more about it.
Yes, Senator.
Okay, maybe we'll hear from our other resource persons. Tapos na yung BIR. Sa DOJ, can we hear from the DOJ? Wala si ASEC. Si ASEC said he will help us with the studies. Wala ho siya ngayon?
Wala po, sir. Good afternoon, Your Honors. Actually, the DOJ was invited to comment on item number 4. But anyway po,
ano ba yung item number 4?
Sa ano po,
sa
sir?
forfeiture cases. Sa
forfeiture cases po. But anyway po, sir, the DOJ has already submitted its position paper on item number 1, the adjusting the schedule of individual income tax, wherein we state that we supported the proposed legislations because it is...
Kasama kayo doon?
Yes.
Kasama kayo doon?
Sa
bill?
Sa bill, yes, sir. Wherein we state that it is pursuant to the mandate of the Congress to evolve a progressive system of taxation, which is provided under the Constitution. But then, while we generally supported the passage of the said bills, we suggested that a comprehensive study be done in order to find ways on how the government will still be able to raise funds to compensate its revenue loss resulting from the lowering of the tax rates. So similarly, because item number 2, which is increasing the ceiling of the 13th month pay, and item number 3, which is exempting marginal income earners from income tax, VAT, and percentage tax, they have more or less the same effects to the revenue collection of the government. So, since we don't have any position paper yet on item number 2 and 3, initially, based on our initial observation, we have also no objection to the passage of the same, Mr. Chair.
Okay, so next hearing, can we ask ASEC to come? Kasi we
Yes.
asked him at the last meeting to help us. Item 5, oh.
Item 5 also po, sir.
That's your bill.
Based on our initial observation, we find no legal objection. But of course, this is, subject to the approval of our secretary.
Mr. Chairman, may I ask the DOJ to take a look at SBN 718, Taxpayers' Bill of Rights? If you could get Undersecretary C to take a look at it more closely, and you might want to propose some amendments on this proposed measure.
Yes, Your
Many
Honor.
are legal.
We will take a deeper study on this.
Yes, thank you.
How about Center for Strategic Reforms? Are they here? Yeah. Can we have, is it Attorney Policarpio or Attorney Roldan who will speak?
Attorney Policarpio, Your
Go ahead, go ahead.
Mr. Chairman and members of the committee, good afternoon. I'm here on behalf of the Center for Strategic Reforms and on behalf of our president, Mon Abrea, who could not be here. And on his behalf, Your Honor, we'd just like to express once again our full support for all the efforts that have been initiated by the senators and this committee concerning all our agenda for improving and overhauling our tax system, particularly the bills adjusting the schedule of individual income taxes, increasing the ceiling of the 13th month pay, exempting the marginal income earners from income tax, VAT, and percentage taxes, and the Tax Administration-Taxpayer's Right, which is Senate Bill number 718. We support these efforts simply because they are all designed to ease the burden of workers and men and women who are at the lowest bracket of our labor force, and without affecting the government's programs and revenue collections. And as mentioned earlier by Professor Kimbo, this is a small price to pay for helping our countrymen. And so we, at the CSR, continue to support this simply because it promotes inclusive growth. Partly also the term horizontal equity was mentioned earlier. It will actually move towards overhauling our tax system, and it will mean lower income taxes for employees, and hopefully it will make it more equitable in the long run. And we continue to express our proposal to convene a national congress, tax congress, whereby all the stakeholders in this system will be able to express and help craft and draft the bills and the proposals which our senators and our congressmen may be able to approve in the soonest possible time. So, Mr. Chairman, with that, we intend to submit a more detailed commentary and a position paper, if you will, on most of this, and help you to review and fine-tune all these proposals.
Salamat. Thank you, Attorney. Can we hear from the Tax Management Association? Yeah. Miss Rina Manuel.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and Senator Recto. Once again, TMAP reiterates its support for the various tax proposals which seeks to adjust the various tax rates and the lowering of the tax rates immediately. Aside from that, we'd like to inform you that TMAP is currently undertaking a study wherein we'd like to propose an alternative form of taxation for individuals, wherein we would like to see a more simplified tax bracketing system for them. Basically, we'd like to propose an initial bracket at 0% rate, which will already tuck in all the exemptions that we are speaking of right now, including the 13-month pay. Just looking at the exemptions that we have right now, the personal exemption, the additional exemption, plus the 13-month pay, at the current level, assuming just 2 dependents, that's already 130,000. But if we consider all the adjustment in the 13-month pay, all those exemptions could run from 170,000 to 220,000 at the maximum. So the objective of that simplification is to do away with all the paperwork, with all the documentations, to prove that you have so many dependents, that you are single or married, so that at the end of the day, it will also consider the tax exemption for the minimum wage earners and the marginal income earners, so that we just speak of just one base, one amount, wherein at that amount, everything will be taxed at 0% rate. So initially, we're looking at around 300,000 at the initial 0% rate. So we're...
That's close to the figure cited by Senator Rector.
Yes, actually between 300 to 350. But we're still looking at the different brackets that will compose the different tax rates, because right now there are about 7 brackets. So we hope to further simplify that so that we're really just speaking of a very simple tax table that all the individuals can look on.
Does your study cover revenue loss also to the government?
No.
No, it's just purely
because,
from the
yes, from
the
a
administration
tax,
and the
yes.
ano.
Because we see that if we make the tax system simple, we will encourage more compliance from taxpayers, especially from the sector of the self-employed and professionals, and even for the marginal income earners. We'd actually like to have them all within the tax net so that we can have a full view of the taxpayers within the system, and everybody could actually do their share.
That proposal from the House to have a minimum tax for certain professionals and self-employed.
We're still looking
You're still
at
studying.
that one.
Anong timeline of the study?
Actually, we just met last week in order to brainstorm with all the proposals, and we've asked several teams within the organization. So we hope to submit something maybe within the next 2 weeks.
Oh, that's fantastic. Okay,
Yes.
sige.
Then, so actually with that tucking in of all the exemptions within the bracket, that would already include all the proposals for the increasing in the 13-month pay and everything. And of course, there should be an automatic indexation of all those tax brackets. For the marginal income earners, aside from the proposal to tuck them into that 0% tax bracket, we also support the proposal to exempt them from the percentage tax and to actually simplify all the tax filings of individuals to maybe just once a year or twice a year at the most, because that will actually encourage compliance from them. A lot of professionals and individuals are actually deterred from complying with their tax filings simply because it's too overwhelming for them. Then for the exemption from VAT, we believe that
It's also good for the BIR because they have to deal with less paper.
Yes.
So,
Actually, it's cost efficient for both sides. As to the exemption of VAT of marginal income earners, the fact that they are marginal income earners, they are already within the threshold of the VAT exemption. So we don't think there should be a separate exemption provision for them, because that they would already be captured under the VAT exempt threshold of now close to 2 million. And
can you say that again?
for the proposed VAT exemption for marginal income earners, because there's currently a VAT exemption threshold already of close to 2 million.
Yeah.
So we assume that they would not reach up to that because of the fact that they are marginal income earners. So it's really more of the exemption on the percentage tax that we are looking for them, plus the other.
What would replace the
admin-
percentage tax in? What's your idea to replace the percentage tax?
Maybe a registration
A flat
fee or
fee, a flat
fixed
fee.
fee.
You have an
for
idea
them.
of how much?
Not yet,
idea.
Senator. Then for item number 4, the BIR.
Is there any data you would need from the BIR and the DOF to help you in your study? Flat fee.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to include in the discussion that I did file that bill on the exempting them from the percentage tax, no, yung marginal income earners. No? There is a law, yung Barangay Micro Business Enterprise Act. No? So the suggestion, well, that is a law. There's a mandate there. No? It's 1,000 pesos. I don't know if that has been amended. Nevertheless, that's a start where we can look.
Is that the yearly?
Right?
Yearly, no? Yearly.
1,000, I think, once in 2 years, if I recall. So it's like 500 a year, if I recall, no? That was the idea, to broaden the base as well, no? Okay, so, but, those numbers can be adjusted upward.
Actually, if it's 500 a year, that's already equivalent to the annual registration fee that all businesses, taxpayers are presently paying right now,
Yes.
with the exception of the compensation income earners.
Yeah.
Paying to whom?
To the BIR.
To the BIR.
Because all businesses, professionals are currently required to pay the 500 annual fee.
Mhm.
So maybe that's something that could be
Yeah.
extended as well. For the other items, item 4, on the BIR power to handle the tax recovery or forfeiture of cases, we believe that the DOJ should continue to prosecute all the cases which are filed by the BIR, because we believe that there should be a distinction between the complainant and the ones who will handle the prosecution. It also has a bearing in terms of taxpayer rights per se, because this is to avoid also harassment on the part of the taxpayer. And speaking of taxpayer rights, our comment on the bill filed by Senator Recto is that actually in some jurisdictions there have been surveys saying that the taxpayer's advocate office or a tax ombudsman is not really an effective way to handle disputes between the taxpayer and the tax administration. So we would like to also submit a proposal wherein there will be a Magna Carta for taxpayer rights and obligation. So it's really more of a balanced document wherein for taxpayer rights, we will be enumerating what the taxpayers can expect from the tax administrators, while the taxpayer's obligation is really what the tax administration can expect from the taxpayers per se. Because it is only when we have a fair tax system that people would really be more encouraged to comply. So it's really more of a mutual partnership between the BIR and the taxpayers, so that we can avoid all these issues between those two sectors. So we hope to submit to your committee a proposal for that Magna Carta, and that proposal will be based on the Model Taxpayer Charter, which is being discussed right now within the Asia-Oceania region. So there's actually a tax conference this coming October, which will update us on developments regarding that taxpayer charter. So we hope to submit something regarding that more concrete after that conference.
Thank you. Can we hear the comment on the MIE bills? We have some resource persons from the informal sector. We have Beth Angshoko for Democratic Socialist Women of the Philippines. They're also pushing for the Magna Carta for informal sector. But yeah, go ahead, Beth.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good afternoon, Senator Recto. We're here to fully support the initiatives to assist and help, particularly the small income earners. we were talking earlier, Mr. Chair, about the threshold, and we appreciate very much Senator Rector's comments about increasing the threshold, because we were doing a bit of a computation. Simpleng math lang po. Pero yung sa 150,000 divided by 12, that's 12,500 sales per month, and that's equivalent to about 480.77 pesos daily sales. And if we remove here the puhunan pa, the expenses, then wala na talagang matitira doon sa ating mga income earners. And therefore, we fully support a recomputation towards adjusting to make it higher the threshold as contained in the bill. My other comment, Mr. Chair, is about the coverage of the bills. I see in the explanatory note that there are examples given, particularly the bill of Senator Recto 2223. But then I also see the definition, the amendments in the definition of Section 22, which I think is really neutral. My only concern, Mr. Chair, is that in the explanatory note, it tends to limit the coverage or the examples given. If we will be, assured that all other forms of livelihood or all other marginal income earners would be considered, would appreciate that very much.
That is the intention, Mr.
Thank
Chairman.
you. Thank you po, Mr. Author, Senator Recto. And lastly, Mr. Chair, we really wish in our networks that these bills will be passed by the Senate, because this will also make it easier for us to push for the other bills that we have been pushing, as Senator Angara knows, because a big chunk of the other bills that we're working on is actually this. And if this passes, maraming salamat po in the name of the millions of workers in the informal economy. Thank you.
Thank you, Beth. Actually, sinabihan ko na si Senator Binay, natanggalin na niya yung tax provision dun sa MACWI, kasi yun yung hinaharangan ng DOF. So we can discuss it here with the DOF. That's what's prevented it from being passed in the previous Congresses. So it should facilitate passage of, let's try to look at it holistically, no? Yung MACWI and other legislation for the MIEs and the informal sector. So can we hear from Ms. Susanita Tesiorna, the President of the Alliance of Workers in the Informal Economy, or ALWIS? Same group ba to? Ano yung umbrella dito? Different group to? Magkaisa. Oh. Okay.
So, parehas kanina na pagdating, nagko-compute na kami kaagad. Magkano yung maliit ba ito o malaki ba? At natutuwa pa kami kasi ang binanggit na ni Senator Recto, mas mataas, mas mababa pa pala yung aming computation. So, thank you very much for that, Senator Recto.
Computation ninyo?
200 plus 1,000, ganon.
I'm sure mas matutuwa doon ang DOF. 200,000.
Okay. So, maganda nga yung ano nito, kung saan ako maipasa na kaagad, kasi magmi-minimize nga ito ng risk ng more debates doon sa Magna Carta for the workers in the informal economy. And then, yun nga, tinitingnan namin, kulang na kulang talaga yung list of economic activities, and I would further suggest lang Mr. Kerr and the members of this committee na we refer back to the definition of informal sector under the NECB para makita natin yung more economic activities that can be covered under this law para hindi siya malilimit. So it's in NECB Resolution number 15, series of 2002, defining the informal sector, wherein it has been already adopted by the ILC 2014 as a definition. So yun siguro ang ating reference. Nais ko lang din pong mabanggit po, kasi nabanggit ni Senator Recto yung BMBE. In fact, nung kayo po yung author nito, tungtuwa kami sa Barangay Micro Business Enterprise Act. But ang reality po, it doesn't work good for us. Yung 1,000 pesos po na nababanggit, parang sa amin nga double jeopardy na. Because it is over and above the business fees and permits lahat. We have to pay another 1,000 pesos just to be able. And sa aming pag-advocate sa mga local government, so naintindihan na namin there was a DILG circular na hindi na kailangan ng local legislation just to have the Republic Act 9178 implemented. But hindi po nangyayari ang sa baba. And I'd like to mention that there are some places that we interviewed. Parang parang nagamit pa ito to downsize bigger companies. So, sana matingnan po ito. I'd like to take that opportunity kasi directly related din dito sa batas na ito. So, we are in full support in behalf of the magkaisa. Ang kasama namin wala dito. And I would like to mention also that we are members of the National Anti-Poverty Commission for the Informal Sector. And when I received the invitation, sometimes 2 nights ago, ang ginawa ko kaagad bilang we tried to call for the padyak, for the tak-tak boys, Miss Bernanin Mahina, So we tried to talk to them over phone para lang magkaroon kami ng a little bit of consensus. And I tried to call the 25 council members from all over the country. And again, the NAPSI workers in the informal sector would like to thank for this napakagandang bill na favorable really for the workers in the informal economy. So again, balik lang po tayo sa definition ng informal sector from the NECB para mas lalawak po yung coverage nito. Maraming salamat po.
Thank you, Ma'am Tesorna. Meron ho ba tayong study ng implementation ng BAMBI law? Meron ba tayong study sa NAPSI or sa...
Hindi naman matawag talaga natin. Basta yung ginawa lang namin ay mga question and answer sa mga treasurers in some cities. And then, nakita din namin, like for example, in Tagbilaran, hindi nila pinahirapan yung kanilang mga maliliit na negosyante. They only ask a barangay clearance of 50 pesos. But mostly talaga po, napakataas. And sana, pagkakataon ko na siguro to, if the chair would allow me, na pagkakataon ko na siguro to na i-raise, although I know it is not under this committee, pero directly related dito. I would like to raise na isa sa pinakamalaking concern namin to the other bill ay yung business fees and permits sa local government kasi walang standard. Talagang they are using the local taxation power. Isa po sa yan sa isa napakalaking balakid.
May study ba tayo na sinong matataas, sinong mabababa?
Ilan lang po siguro yan, but I will try to ask NAPSI kung natapos na yan because we attended.
Hingin ho namin sa inyo yung mga pag-aaral ninyo dyan kasi very helpful ho sa... At saka we'll take it into account. And then for the next meeting, we'll also invite yung mga association or liga na mga barangay. Mga... maybe Councilors League even because they pass local legislation, League of Municipalities, etc.
Yung 5 liga po, kasi yun po yung aming hirap na hirap kami. But yung doon sa mga LGU na pinipresent namin yung BMBA, ang sagot lagi nila sa amin, sir, ay mababawasan yung kanilang kita. So I told them that the law, 2 taon lang ang inyong ibibigay. And after 2 years, mas marami sanang magiging lalabas pa. So yun yung lagi ang kinatwiran nila na hindi po kami naniniwala. Kasi kung 2 taon lang, according to the law, ang kanilang ibibigay for exemption, the next years, dapat gano'n na. Kasi kung dadamihan na sila ng mga taxes, permits lahat, paano mo mapapalago yung negosyo kung doon pa lang sa taxes ay patay na. Okay, so yun yung isa sa concern namin talaga. Okay, thank you.
Tama. Talagang most countries, pinapalaki muna nila yung mga negosyo nila bago nila papatayin, di ba? We have Miss Kakanando from the Small Business Corporation. Ay, ma'am, please go ahead.
Afternoon, sir.
Under the DTI?
Yeah. We are the financing arm of the DTI. Our mandate is entrepreneurship. So we provide financing programs and capacity building programs for entrepreneurs. Our comment on we were invited for item number 3, marginalized income earners. Actually, if we may provide comment, the challenge here really is to move from being marginalized to enterprises that are ongoing and earning. So siguro po, a good study later on if the law is passed is how many of the marginalized are moved to the viable enterprises. I'd just like to share some data. The number of registered MSMEs in the country is less than 800,000, and that figure has been there for several decades already. Meaning, kasi mataas yung mortality rate ng ating MSME. So, in 5 years, 20% lang dyan ang nagsusurvive. So, that's why the numbers remain. So dito sa 90% are micro enterprises, so that's about 700,000. Dito sa numbers na ito, we don't have data also, ilan sa kanila ang marginalized if the definition would be 300,000 sales a year. So that's one area that has to be studied. But there is also the micro. They're not even enterprises. They're unregistered. Ito yung mga siniservice ng microfinance institutions.
That's micro, yung 300,000
Yung
sales a year.
pong,
Micro yun.
let me differentiate ha. Kasi the 800,000, these are registered. Meaning, meron silang DTI, Mayor's Permit, BIR. Maliban doon, meron pa yung
800,000
800,000 is the number of registered MSMEs, and 90% of them are micro enterprises. When I say enterprises, legit. Bona fide enterprises. Formal. But there's also the informal.
Yes.
There are at least 1.5 million families serviced by the microfinance institutions. So it's possible meron pang iba na hindi nangungutang sa MFIs. But you could say na talagang active are the 1.5 million dahil nakakapangutang sila doon. Our point lang is hindi lang po sa taxation. In fact, this 1.5 million, they don't pay tax because they're not registered. So, isang issue that SB Corp would like to, I don't know if we're off tangent, but issue talaga ng ease of entry. Because, for example, sa BIR, you can register electronically your TIN number. But to get, for example, to get your official receipt, we have experienced, it takes so long. Minsan naubusan pa ng
yung mga
receipts.
ganun, very practical and
Yes po.
important
So,
feedback yan,
yung 1.5 million na informal, we don't want them to stay there. We don't want them to stay marginalized. So, yung pong it's not just taxation kasi in the first place, they don't pay tax. So, it's really yung isang area that to support entrepreneurship is to look at the ease of entry in terms of formalization.
So can you give us the data on ano yung pinabayaran nitong 800,000 na registered enterprises? What fees they have to pay?
The sales tax, 3%.
Can you put it in writing?
Sige, sir.
And then, kasi we have to come up with kailangan may insentibo tayo sa kanila para pumasok sila ng formal, di ba? Kung wala.
No, there are...
They'd be, yung 800,000, but I'm talking about the
1.5.
At least 700,000. Kasi 1.5
No, the 700,000, they are also formal.
Hindi, yung 700,000, you said there are 1.5 million enterprises serviced by MFIs, di ba? So, 1.5 minus 800 equals 700.
No,
So,
sir,
sinasabi
no,
nyo,
sir. That's
So, 1.5 is in
800,000.
addition to 800,000.
Yes, the 1.5 million are
In addition.
not registered. Yes.
So, there are 2.3 million enterprises. you're saying.
Yeah, if you include the
So,
informal.
talagang there's really something wrong. May mali talaga yung sistema kung mas malaki ang nasa labas ng kulambo.
Yes, it's about the entry of business.
Kasi walang insentibo. May mali talaga sa sistema kung gano'n, di ba?
Mr. Chairman, just
Go ahead, Senator.
Just very briefly on this issue. Ms. Cacanando?
Yes.
So you mentioned that there are 700,000 micro enterprises.
Registered.
Huh? Okay. Of the micro enterprises, kasi yung
formal
800 for MSME, that means micro, small, medium scale.
Yes.
So 90% of them are micro. Is that correct?
The definition of micro enterprises in this type of survey is number of employees.
Correct.
It's 1 to 9 employees.
Correct. Okay, now, so these micro enterprises, you also mentioned that they pay percentage taxes,
Yes.
3%, di ba?
Yes, in
Okay.
fact.
Okay. Under our proposal, under the bill itself, now we're saying that, and then I made mention of certain amendments earlier on, no? So, roughly, we're looking at 350,000 pesos as a marginal income earner, which is a micro enterprise in this?
Actually, I don't know, sir, how many of the 700,000 would be considered marginalized under...
Yes, precisely.
Okay.
So that's why we will need that data from you. No? Of the
Yes.
700,000, how many would have, or give us an information on what are the gross sales of your micro enterprises, di ba? Ano ba yung average gross sales ninyo in a
We
year?
can
That's
do
fine.
a rough a survey.
Okay. And the second is, yung what type of taxes do they pay? They may registration fee. Isa. Okay.
Sales tax, yun ang mabigat kasi
Yung
that's
sales
3%.
tax na percentage tax na
Yeah, that's
3%.
3%. Yeah.
Na may compliance cost yun dahil monthly mong fina-file yun. Tama?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Do you think they should be exempted from that?
Since horizontal equity po ang hinahanap, the computation, dapat ang net income nila after all of these things should be equal to the...
Correct.
Opo. The,
Correct.
Yes.
Now, assuming it
460
is, should they
pesos.
be exempted? Dapat siguro, di ba?
If they're exempted, then magbabago yung yung amount because, di ba? It
Correct.
depends on the
Correct.
committee. Yeah.
Oo, ha?
Better to exempt them para simplified na lang yung...
Simplified
Yes,
na, di
oo.
ba? Dahil...
Pareho din yung bottom line.
correct.
nila.
No? Okay. So, maliit sila negosyante. If you're an employee, you make the same amount of money. You're exempted from all of this. Eh. Ito, you're trying to run a business, trying to be an entrepreneur, pero pinahihirapan nga daming compliance, di ba?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
So that's one issue, no? So, in effect, you're in favor of simplifying all of
Yes.
that, right? Okay.
And to be fair to the BIR, then the amount, basta yung amount bottom line should not be more than naman
Correct.
the... Yeah.
Agreed. I agree totally, no? Okay. Second point is, eto mga, and you want them to graduate,
Yes.
right? So, but, you know, the first point is, how can they graduate kung umpisa pa lang, they're saddled already with all these costs?
Yes.
Instead of them thinking of how to grow their business, they have to think of compliance.
Yes,
Kasi
Senator.
magastos yung compliance eh. Meron ba kayong pag-aaral sa inyo on how much is the compliance cost?
Ito sadly po, wala po.
Wala kayong ganun.
DTI has to start doing, maybe they have
Baka
some
mamaya
figures.
yung compliance cost mas mahal pa sa bis na binabayaran eh.
Yes, and yeah.
Diba?
Okay.
Maybe someone can help us out here and provide the data to the committee that sometimes these compliance costs are more than the actual taxes that they are paying, di ba? Okay.
Maybe the informal sector.
That's right, no? And then finally, you mentioned that there's still 1.5 million enterprises out there who are in the informal sector.
Yeah.
And why do you think they do not want to be in the formal sector? Is it also because alam nila if they formalize, mahihirapan sila. They'll have to register with the BIR, magbabayad ng percentage taxes, monthly or quarterly income taxes, so on and so
Partly po.
forth.
But if the BMBE is effectively implemented, they will be encouraged kasi they have 3 years to... My understanding is 3 years po yung exemption. If it's really effectively implemented. So, may I raise po, it's
Yes.
very, very important to have your papers, your BIR license. And when you have BIR license, andyan na lahat yun, yung TTI. So, actually, the banks can be asked to just require BIR license. It's very important to have that because you cannot grow without access to the market networks.
Correct. Agreed.
Opo.
Agreed.
So, yun, that's a reason why access, entry to business should be simplified. I believe we're in the credit sector, no? But it seems the access to entry is more problematic than access to finance. That's our observation.
Okay, I understand what you're trying to point out. So, you're saying that there is a market and you're willing to lend them.
Yes, sir.
But their problem is how do they register?
And if you don't register, you cannot really grow.
Correct.
Yung credit,
Understood.
napuput at risk din yung credit.
Okay, thank you for your testimony. Salamat po.
Welcome.
Thank you. We'll have to wrap up, so we'll recognize sa DOF na lang. Can we ask for we'll recognize you after. Can we ask for, with all the proposals, can we ask for the revenue implications of all the measures for the marginal income earners?
Mr. Chairman, since we have that data, I'd like to complete our analysis based on my questions ni Senator Ralph.
Sige, thanks. Kay Mr. Maynardo Palarca, SecGen of ACIW, representing the construction workers.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Ms. Senator Recto. First, I just would like to make a little comment about the enterprise. Actually, to maintain a legitimate business, it would take you 100,000 or more. First, you have to maintain an accountant, to maintain a staff, to maintain all the books of accounts. Then we have the registration, we have the original receipts. For it to survive, you have to spend a minimum of 100,000 just to maintain a business. Now, I would like to make a comment on as far as the construction workers is concerned. The construction workers, as far as the construction workers is concerned, there are more or less 2.2 million construction workers, and our estimate, most of them, there is a violation of minimum wage and labor standard, including occupational health and safety, a violation of more than 70 to 75%. What I'm saying is most of the construction workers are either do not receive the minimum wage, or there is a violation of the SSS, overtime, and PhilHealth. What I would like to request, Your Honors, because we are trying to organize the construction workers as guilds, where they are going to engage in business as trade contractors. Now, if they are going to engage as trade contractors, the element of subcontracting, which has caused the non-payment of minimum wage or violation of minimum wage and labor standard would be minimized, just like in other countries in Japan, where the contractors or the owners would just hire directly guilds of masons, carpenters, and so on and so forth, and thus eliminate the minimum wage, the violation of minimum wage and labor standard. What we would like to propose is organizations such as the contractors or trade contractors or construction workers should be given a leeway as far as the payment of VAT is concerned. So that, because if we are going to contract out a certain portion of a construction firm, where we are going to contract out, let's say, the masonry works, that would cost millions, especially if the project is very big. So the element of VAT there, the element of taxes is very big, and that it would not help us in organizing this kind of profession. What we would like to do is to organize these workers into guilds, and they themselves would engage in contracting their services, professionalize their services. They would be in charge of providing all the wages and requirements under the law, and they can only do that if the taxes are less, or especially if the VAT is not, if they would be exempted from the payment of VAT. Because if they would do, then they would have the problem of first computing the minimum wage and labor standard, computing the cost of safety, computing the cost of VAT, including the administrative cost, which would technically not be able to succeed in organizing this kind of firm or business.
We'll get maybe DOF can react to that later on. No? If you, what exactly ang hinihingi nyo, sir? Yung
kasi po, ang balak po,
kayo sa VAT?
Ang balak po kasi namin, sir, ma-organize sila by guilds.
Narinig ko yun. You want to organize into guilds, so you can...
And then when we engage, dapat hindi na kami magbabayad ng VAT kasi mostly, ang masisingil lang namin, yung compliance lang na minimum wage, labor standard.
Hindi na kayo magbabayad ng VAT sa services.
Kasi po, kung itapatong pa po namin yan, hindi na kami magsasaksin na makakuha pa ng contract.
But ang advocacy nyo para sa construction workers
Opo, para yung minimum wage sa mga labor standard ay matatanggap na ng construction workers. At saka magkakaroon naman sila ng konting kumbaga sa sinasabi nating inclusive growth. Napakalaki ng growth ng construction industry. Pero karamihan pa po sa mga manggagawa sa construction ay nasa marginalized or napakahirap. Ang iba sa kanila, hindi pa tumatanggap ng minimum wage.
Okay. Thank you, sir. So, can we hear from DOLE, si Ms. Patricia Ornilla, OIC Director of the National Wages and Productivity Commission.
Good afternoon, Senator Angara, Senator Recto, and members of the committee. The DOLE supports all the fiscal measures that would raise the tax-exempt threshold or tax-exempt income for marginal income earners, for other low-paid workers, including minimum wage earners. Specific to item number 2, increasing the ceiling of the 13-month pay. This would help the department in pushing its reforms particularly in encouraging enterprises to go into productivity incentive schemes. While there are currently incentives in place for enterprises for going to productivity, there's none for workers. And this would provide, by raising the tax-exempt income threshold for Christmas bonuses from 30,000 to 70 or 75,000, that would benefit our workers and supports the Dole thrust towards improving productivity. We also see the piece of legislation, both items 2, 3, and 1, as contributing to poverty reduction and inclusive growth. And so we fully support all the bills on the fiscal measures. Thank you, Senator.
Thank you. Can we hear from Mr. Gaite from Courage, sir?
Sa ating kagalang-galang na tagapagpangulo ng Ways and Means Committee, Senator Gara, kay Senator Frecto, at sa mga kasama natin ngayon. Muli namin nire-reiterate ang aming posisyon na suporta sa lahat ng mga sa mga bills na ang layunin ay papalakihin ang take-home pay ng mga manggagawa. Tulad na nabanggit ng mga unang tagapagsalita, napakalaking pasanin ang nasa balikat ng mga manggagawa, bunga na napakataas na buwis, lalo na naipaliwanag na sa ating bansa, tayo na atang pinakamataas na pasanin ng buwis kung ihahambing sa ibang bansa dito sa Asia. And we believe, tama rin po sinabi ni Senator Angara, by 2015, kung hindi pa ito may pasa, nasa political mode na, yung electoral mode na. Kung kaya ang aming re-reiterate, na sana ito ay madaliin. Ibig sabihin, tulad na banggit ni Senator Frecto, he already filed similar bills in the previous Congress, and this came to naught because of the resistance of agencies such as the Department of Finance and BIR. We hope that this will be overridden by these discussions that were inputted during this hearing, and we would also like to reiterate our position that as a peripheral issue, despite the proposed tax breaks for workers, we also would like to a prayer for the government workers and working class that the salaries and wages should also be adjusted. And this is a matter of the current cost of living, wherein even if no taxes be paid by the lowest government workers and the private sector workers, this will still not approximate the current cost of living. So we hope that the other tax measures, the other bills pertaining to wage increases also be given priority. We also like to, again, also reiterate the provision where there's a lot of teeth gnashing during these meetings, because as pointed out, the steps that were already included in the original law, the National Internal Revenue Code, provided for an adjustment of said amounts. But unfortunately, this has not been practiced by the concerned agencies. And we hope, although the bills propose for a 3-year indexation, we actually even propose for a shorter period, if there is a possibility of 1-year indexation period, since inflation is a daily crisis for all Filipinos. So we hope that the shortest possible time, wherein the indexation of the amounts for the tax exemption be considered to genuinely address the concern of workers. Thank you very much. Maraming salamat sa inyo.
Salamat, Mr. Gaite. Last resource person is Director Rodriguez from the NTRC.
Mr. Chairman, I would just like to comment on the revenue estimates of the proposed increase in the ceiling of the 13th-month pay and other benefits from 30 to 70,000. So we heard the presentation of Dr. Kimbo, which is based on the FICE and the local and the LFS, the labor labor force survey. So I think, Mr. Chairman, the differences in the estimates is in view really of the database and the methodology being used by the DOF, by Dr. Kimbo and others who attempted to estimate the revenue impact of this proposal. But I would just like to make some notes on the LFS and the FICE. The income called in these surveys are basic pay only. Whereas we are aware that other offices, they don't have not just the 13th month pay, some have the 14th, the 15th, the 16th, and so on month pay. And I understand FICE also report income not only in cash but also in kind. So, and then the other benefits.
What is the consequence of that fact that you're stating?
That's why I'm just pointing out that there must be some refinements, Mr. Chairman, in the estimates.
Well, we'll welcome any of you're under the DOF family, no?
Yeah.
So I assume you'll be.
Actually, we have really a different.
Are you participating in the? Are you participating in the discussions in the DOF?
During yes, sir.
Okay, sige.
But the difficulty really is we use the BIR data, which is a process one. So I agree with Yusek Paul that we devote time to see the raw data. Because when it is processed, averaging sometimes...
Yeah, that's really the ideal. But if the raw data is not available and is not available in a timely manner, it's impossible. Ho. So I'll just expect you na lang to coordinate with the DOF because you're under the DOF, diba?
Actually, sir, yung ideally nga, yung actual, yung doon sa NG, sa National Government Employees data on the distribution by salary grade, we already got, the NTRC already got an estimate of over 7 billion revenue loss.
From?
That is only from the national government employees.
Why didn't you? Are you ready to present that?
We
7 billion?
7 billion.
Yeah, for
over
the 13th
7
month. For the 13th
for
month.
the 13th month pay and other benefits. That is only NG. That is only national government, and it covers less than 1 million. So this does not include yet. I'm just showing the magnitude of the loss. If we get 7 billion already lost from the NG, this is actual data by salary grade. So this is the salary per salary grade.
Yes, yes.
If we do simulation, and we did that, we got already 7 billion. So what more if we include those in the private sector? This is more than the number of employees in the government sector, in the LGU.
Sige, can you submit to the committee because it's 3 o'clock and we have to attend the plenary session. So we will just wait for your submission regarding that. That's interesting. No? Yung so salamat. Meron bang hindi natawag na gustong magsalita? Sino? Yes.
Mr. Chair, actually, I have here Assistant State Prosecutor Edna Valenzuela from the DOJ to comment on item number 4.
Can you keep it brief? Kasi tinawag na yung DOJ kanina eh. So, can you keep it brief because we have sessions already? Can you just submit na lang your brief siguro? Kasi 3 o'clock na eh. Ayoko naman ma-late sa session. Kasi linalabas sa dyaryo yun eh. Na ilan beses ka late. So, hindi naman nakalagay doon was chairing a Ways and Means Committee hearing, di ba? So, I'm sorry, no, that we didn't have time for you. But I gave the DOJ the floor kanina. Akala ko okay na kayo. So, salamat na lang ho. We'll wait for your submission. Okay. Thank you. We'll suspend muna the hearing and in a few weeks, we'll call another meeting. Salamat ho. Thank you.